Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, I'm coming to you from our brand new studio. This is my first interview in my brand new studio. My brother Tim, I've been on his show recently. He's been on, this is his third time on my show. And what we're going to be talking today is how to become a man of influence. And we're actually going to Tim's actually going to teach us what that actually means, and it's not what you think the word influencer means. So, guys, I want to thank Monster Energy keeping me going. I got 6 interviews today. Thank you, Monster. And then also at the end of the episode, I'm going to tell you how you can get my book for 90% off. The sale ends on Friday. My brother Tim is a podcaster, CEO. I had to write it down. She did so many different things. Author. But my favorite part of Tim is he's a husband. He's a father first. And we're going to be talking all those things because if one area of your life, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, is off, everything is going to be off. And we're going to be talking about all that today. Tim, my brother, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Man, I appreciate it. Have a wonderful time last episodes, and I had a wonderful time with you on my episode. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to your audience. I appreciate it, brother.
I love it. And guys,
Yeah.
I want to tell you that without Tim, I wouldn't be able to be doing what I do today because I actually took a course, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago. And it taught me almost everything that I'm doing today. And Tim, we can talk about that later. But so
Sure.
I just want to say that if it wasn't for Tim and also my brother Zachary Babcock,
Yes,
I would
sir.
not be doing what I'm doing today. So, Tim, I just want to say thank you, brother. And I mean it. Without you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So I'm truly humbled and grateful for your friendship and your brotherhood.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. It feels good to, embody the man of influence, and then, invest in people that are creating their own voice. There's just no disconnection from my mission. So whether it's business or it's missional, it's men, rising up to their voice and creating that influence that the world needs to hear, man.
All right. So, first question, and it's the
Yes,
only
sir.
really scripted question I have is what is your definition of resiliency? Because if a lot of people know Tim now, it always hasn't been sunshine, rainbows, skittles, and unicorns. You've had to
Sure.
go through some pivots and also some stuff in your life. So, what is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, what I would give it is two words that come to mind is flexible and adaptable. I think both of these we really need an abundance to be successful in life, and we often think it's the opposite, right? When we think of strength, we think of rigid. We think of more like steel, and steel like unbendable. But I found that kind of rigidness actually creates stress cracks and it breaks. So the ability to adapt and to be flexible, I think, is a resiliency. We're throwing a lot of crap inside of life. I was through a lot of traumatic upbringing and addiction and runaway and all that kind of different trauma stuff that goes along with that. And I had to develop the inner resiliency in the form of, all right, I got this stuff thrown at me. What do I do now? And so flexible and adaptability, I think, are really the keys to that resiliency you're talking about.
All right. So, give us a quick down and dirty about who Tim Holloway is, where he came from, and how you became a man of influence.
Yeah, sure, sure. Just to keep it brief, you know, hardship, like, a lot of people, I've connected with a lot of people that had very similar stories, but, parents that were addicted and diagnosed with the schizophrenia, living, off the system and on welfare. And I was on the wrong side of the tracks. They called us white trash. We just ghetto, man. And I was in that environment till 10 years old, until the government stepped in and took us away. There was a murder that happened in our backyard, and then they seen what the house was. It was just squatters everywhere, in drug addiction, prostitution, and all that stuff. And so the government took us, all five of us kids, away, spread us out to different relatives, and not a very good start, man. Very bad start. I had a lot of trauma associated to what I experienced in the home, and I really didn't know how to cope with it. So I used drugs at a very early age. I think at 12 I started huffing paint, and then it moved on to some of the other things that I got into. But I had a lot of trauma, and I didn't really have the skills necessary to learn to cope, and that led to a lot of pain, man. Addiction, runaway, streets, arrested, the whole gamut of things. Meth labs, bad bad relationships, you name it. And you know to a wake-up call, a rock bottom. Which was an overdose. In caused it caused me to pause and think. And I consider it one of my main encounters with God, is that during that moment, I knew I didn't want to go on like this anymore. And at the weight I was and how sickly I was from all the drugs and stuff, I don't think I would have lasted very long. And so it was almost like you know a fork in the road of, which path am I going to go down, man. And so yeah, I chose the light. And been on that journey ever since.
All right,
So
so
yeah.
let me ask you a question real quick because
Mhm.
you know when a lot of people are interviewed, especially about recovery, they talk about what life was like before,
Sure.
what life was like after. And when I have somebody like myself that is in active recovery, I've been clean and sober 35 years now. Um,
Boom. Good
I
job.
know that there's 3 days that really matter the most to me when I'm talking to somebody. It's the day before when they were still using. Then there was the come to Jesus moment.
Hmm.
And then there's the day after, because now you had to make a decision of
Hmm.
where do I go from here? So can
Sure.
you take us back to those 3 different days? Because you're 3 different people in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're like three totally different people in a 3 day period.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take us back to those.
So yeah, just to lead up to the overdose, what I was experiencing at the time, and why an overdose would kind of be the rock bottom. There was multiple paranoid delusions. One of the ones that I had, that I was always being followed. So to put it in perspective, what that looks like when you're having a paranoid episode is that you're running all day from nobody. Now just imagine that for a minute. All day long, you are running from somebody, right? And this was the police in my mind. The police were chasing me. And so it's absolutely exhausting to, whether it's pedaling your bike for miles upon miles because somebody's chasing you, getting to a location and peeking out the window and staying there, because somebody's after you. So this paranoid delusions were getting worse and worse, and it led to a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic attacks. One of them was, I'm holding on to the stop sign because I convinced myself that gravity was going to leave, and I was going to suck up into the atmosphere. So it was really bad stuff. And so that led to the overdose, and to my encounter with God, to where, after that moment, I sat on a hammock all day long. I mean, from that happened in the morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning, all day long until the sunset. I was sitting on that hammock, just stoking in what my life is, man, what I've become. And so yeah, from there, uh desires changed. I didn't transform overnight, but desires changed inside of me, and I wanted something different. And so that led to, a lot of choices changing, friends changing. Um, I went into a 12-step program. I got sponsored by an older guy in AA who, man, he took me through some stuff, facing my trauma, making restitution, relieving me of my conscience. He operated much like a priest for me, and I got to unload the things that were done to me, whether it's sexual abuse or violence and stuff like that. And then I got to make right some of the wrongs that I did, and so that I owe it to that set me on a new path, and things begin to change from there.
Well, do you agree with me that even whether it's life, whether it's business, the people you hang out with are going to determine where you go in life? Like
Sure.
once I got sober, the day that I decided to get sober, I knew that I had to get away from people, places, and things, and find better people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And I think it all goes back to the five, and we talked about that on your show. So, how important is it if when a person's getting out of active addiction, trying to get into active recovery? How important is it to change your people, places, and things?
Yeah, so important, man. I had to do a couple rounds with that. One, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, man, and walked in, and they're in a circle passing the meth pipe, and you know, I I found myself in the circle, and that's when I first encountered the power of God, and what I was connected with was because the new desires already formed, and this is like 4 weeks into my recovery. I don't know how I got here. I got here. I didn't mean to get here, but here I am. And so I was reaching out to the power of God to help me inside of the situation, and I had the strength to grab the pipe and pass it to the next person. I said, "I gotta bounce, guys. I'll see you later." And then off I went out the door. And I was celebrating, on the way home, because I learned a valuable lesson of the new desires and the surrender and the power that was available to me, after I learned not to put myself in that position anymore. Um, because a couple weeks later, I put myself in another position. It was with somebody who mentored me in the street gang, which was that I was involved in, and he had a far more influence over me. And then I ended up giving into temptation. I was high for like 4 days, and so I learned from both of those lessons of, yeah, we can trust in the power of God, but then we need to make sure that we're not putting ourselves into situations that we can avoid.
Yeah, and then I have a lot of people. They say, oh, you've been for 35 years. You had to do all those steps. And I'm like, no. I'm like, the only one I had to do perfectly was the first step. Other than that, I could fuck up all the other 11 steps. But as long as I do the first one, I'm
Yeah,
good. So
yeah.
and I think the first part of solving a problem is realizing that you have a problem. Correct?
That is, and you can take that truth to any area of your life, awareness, recognition, anything that gets measured and evaluated can get improved. It's the things that we acknowledge. So yeah, when it comes to recovery, pulling our head out the sand, facing the facts. The facts is that I can't, control the things that are going on here. I can't. I never could use in a moderate fashion. There are some people out there that have that ability. I actually tip my hat to people that are able to drink moderately and do those things. I haven't been able to do that. So, recognizing that I'm not of that person or of that makeup that has the ability to go down that path and not let it consume me. So you're absolutely right. Acknowledgement.
Now, this might be a question that might rankle a few feathers, but
Sure.
that's okay. I've been, like I said, I'm old school recovery. When I got clean and sober at 20 years old, and my first meeting, I was drunk, I was hungover, and the guy that I first met, he said, "Sit down, shut up, make coffee, get here early, stay late because you know nothing." And I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. So, but now I still go to meetings. I hit AA, NA once in a while, and I hear these guys are like, "Bro, I'm not going to worry about overdosing. I got my Narcan." And the guys that I hang out
Oh
with and get high
man.
with, they got their Narcan, so we're okay. So, do you think? I mean, it's helping in some ways, but don't you think it might have a negative effect in other ways?
Yeah, I think I can look at both sides of it. And I would like to comment on both sides because my father overdosed from heroin, and so it's near and dear to my heart. I think inside of the prison culture that they know that they're subject to these things and they're in this environment and stuff, and they know that there's a lot of people in prison that are dying for overdoses and stuff. So, a therapeutic treatment center setting, I think it's highly useful, and it gives people the chance, to get things right. But on the flip side, just like you said, um, gosh, it can be very enabling, sort of thing. And so I would ask myself, are we being a part of the solution, or part of the problem? And that's the problem I have with a lot of safe houses and some of these other methods. It's like I don't know the effectiveness of that approach. Um, Harsh reality with truth, and somebody with compassionate love to tell somebody the truth, create a bottom for them. Because here's what I think, that it does cushion the bottom, and they're
Yeah.
unable to create a bottom. Somebody who helps somebody, or helps create that bottom for them by assertive relationships, because people don't understand, like most addicts, they got an enabler that is helping them, and they got a multiple different people around them that are actually part of the the harm that's being done to them. And if they all collaborate together and say we're going to stop enabling, they can actually create a bottom for a person.
And something I want to bring up is like I said, I catch a lot of shit from this, but it's okay. I'm one of the miracles. I still battle every day with staying clean and sober. But I have a friend, and I'm not going to mention his name. He went from heroin to methadone. He had to come back from his vacation in Disney because he needed his methadone. So
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me, it's kind of like, wait a minute, you're just trading one drug for another. You're so. What are your thoughts on that?
So I have a lot of thoughts. My both of my parents were on methadone, and we called it getting the dose. In fact, uh, when they used to do take homes, my brother drank it, and he had to be rushed to the hospital when they used to do those kind of things. So I don't think they allow take homes anymore. But I have some thoughts on that, because I seen what it did in my parents, and they did go get their dose, but then they met the guy at the corner too. It was just like part of the whole process of, and so, I don't know the effectiveness of it. I haven't seen it in like real life, the effectiveness of it. I could see how, somebody who already hit bottom and really want to change, maybe it would help them through the detox part of it. But yeah, I don't know, bro.
I know. I know. These are the hard
I don't know.
questions. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, a lot of people don't talk about this. But I want to give a big shout out to you, Tim. But I
Uh-huh.
also want to give shout out to Zach Babcock. He just celebrated his 10th year out of prison. And I love how people like the three of us can reinvent and reimagine our lives, and to actually become a productive member of society. But we all had to take some steps as soon as we decided. So when
Sure.
what were some of the steps that you took besides getting away from people, places, and things?
Sure. Sure.
What did you start getting into to change your life?
Yeah. So it wasn't intentional, but I had mentors begin to invest in my life at that moment of transformation. Surprisingly, I tell people this story and they're like, "Nah," and I'm like, "Yeah." A cop took me into his house at 17 years old, and he showed me what a real man was. Man, he was fit. He had a marriage. He raised his kids like he didn't beat them. Uh, uh, he had a job. Like so, it was very unintentional, but having mentors in my life, it shattered my worldview. And this is where I believe that all change happens in it's inside of the worldview because we have a certain perspective in a frame that we've accepted, and we've accepted that from programming from our childhood and all these different things. And I had some things that were written upon my heart based upon the trauma that I experienced, and it goes something like, this happened to me so I'm not enough, or this happened to me so I'm not good. And so it's interpreting all of this stuff, and so we have a frame that we're working out of, and in my mind the frame had to be demolished. And the way that it was demolished was by other people in my life mirroring to me a different reality. Oh, you mean uh men don't beat their wives? You mean like, and all of these things was like I felt like I was in the twilight zone, Richard. Like I'm in this environment. I'm like, I don't even know how to navigate any of this. Because we eat at the dinner table, man. We didn't have a dinner table. We didn't even freaking eat. We ate because the school gave us breakfast and lunch, and we didn't get no dinner. Our parents were too busy tweaking. This whole reality that I'm experiencing. I'm like, I don't even know what to do, right? So all change starts there. We need to examine the frame and the worldview that we have, and to allow that to be demolished and replaced with a reality in a something that's going to really produce life in us. So that's where it started with me.
And I love it. And I just want to give a big shout out to Teen Challenge. They're out of
Yes.
Pennsylvania. I want to give a big shout out to Nikki Cruz and Pastor David. If I didn't hear your words, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I just want to give a big shout out to them because they're changing from the kids, because on average 5,000 adolescents attempt suicide every day.
Mhm.
5,000 every day in the United States. And I think if we can get them young, just like when you were helping out with Trinity Youth Services, if we can get them young, if we they have a great chance of thriving and surviving into adulthood. But if we don't get them young, then we're going to start losing a lot more. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a very place in my heart for Teen Challenge. I visit the Benedict Castle in Riverside, California, and got to know their whole operation and stuff. I didn't go through the program, but I wanted to know everything about them, and so they freely allowed me to document everything about them, and it was a wonderful experience. And yeah, men. This is a really a sad stat, but you know, 3 out of 4 men are could be classified as unhappy. But the sad stat is the 1 in 4 are in a very, very bad place. And this is not like mild melancholy or whatever it is. It is it's in the point of clinical. And that is that every 1 in 4 man that we meet is struggling with some suicidal stuff, is struggling with addiction, has some really, really heavy burdens, and they experience a lot of trauma. So in my field, there is something called adverse childhood experiences. There's 10 questions, and they ask you these questions. And what they found out with this study is that anybody who has experienced quite a few of these They have traced throughout history. They die 20 years before everybody else. It's like literally a stat. And so that being said, anybody who has experienced these things, they need to begin to heal, and they need extra self-care and self-love and stuff like that. Otherwise, their life is not going to be as long and as fruitful as everybody else's. So
All right,
that would apply.
but now when somebody gets asked these 10 questions,
Mhm.
they have to be brutally honest,
They do.
because if you're just fluffing these 10 questions, even like the recovery said, it's a program of brutal honesty. Um,
Yes.
I can't say, if Tim asks me, "How are you doing today?" and I give the standard answer, "I'm good, I'm okay." But
Yeah.
if Tim asks me, "Rich, how are you really doing?" I can be honest. But if those people don't answer those 10 questions brutally honest, they're never going to be able to get the help that they need. Correct?
That is, man. They're some of the ones questions that are on there is really they're tough stuff. You know, have you ever been sexually abused? Have you ever been violently assaulted? Have you ever seen your mother get beat down? These kind of like has your parent or been incarcerated? They're very connected to traumatic experiences, and yeah, anything growth oriented. You see, this is what helped me is that I'm in this treatment center environment. I'm helping the younger generation. That was me. I mean, these guys are in gangs. It's harshest life. Some of their sad stories, like their mother pimped them out to other male adults for money, like just bad stuff, right? And they experience all kinds of things, and then I'm going through on how to help these kids, right? I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm broken, man. I'm so broken. Like I have all of these things too, and I'm like, I had to deal with my stuff, man, by stepping in and thinking that I'm going to help kids with their trauma. Got me to confront my own trauma and begin to process it and deal with all that stuff. So brutal honesty, yeah.
One thing that I've learned, and I love your group, Men of Influence. I'm learning how to 10x my life as a better father, better husband, better son, better friend, better businessman. But it all starts with the honesty part, to where, like, I knew when I wanted to start podcasting, I don't know anything about podcasting. So who do I know? I know Tim. I know Zach. I'm investing in this course and I'm going to learn everything that I can. But I had to be honest and say, I need help. And I
Sure,
think
sure.
if men would just get real and say, listen, guys, I'm struggling. I need
Hmm.
help. I think we could save a lot more lives if men would just, instead of because I tell everybody that this man up mentality is
Uh-huh.
killing men
It
every
is.
single day.
It is.
Instead of saying speak up, instead of
Mhm.
man up, maybe we might save some more lives. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Gosh, thank you, brother. Thank you. Obviously, a lot because this is the frame of this is the perspective that I've accepted for the world, and the the grind culture of self help movement. It's very thick, and it's very easy to fall into that. Um, hustle, grind, work, achieve, make more money, whatever it is. It's the hamster wheel of achievement, and if we're not careful, and this is the biggest problem that I'm championing and trying to solve, is that we're ambitious men who love challenges. We love to win. We love to achieve. We love trophies, right? But the problem with all of that is that we have our sense of self and our worth attached to those, right? And so if I can make this amount of money in my business, I can get to that level. And then I will be somehow good. The world will somehow accept me. I'll get the validation that I need. And so there's this very misspent priority and focal point. And so I feel like when it comes to the man up movement, that it's it's so detrimental in this sense that if we're not secure in who we really are and feel loved and accepted unconditionally and have self-compassion, those things over here, they will run you into the ground. The business, the money, the struggle to achieve. I'm not worthy. I'm going to prove to the world. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show my father. I'm going to it's just on down. It's all these nasty motivations attached to the grind culture. And it's like, I'm just trying to say, hey, why don't you give yourself a big old hug, man? Why don't the next time you get a win, why don't you celebrate for a longer period of time? Why don't you develop some self-care practices that communicate unconditional acceptance to yourself, not based upon your performance? Because this is big. When you think about that, like Richard, like no father would go, well, son, I'll love you if you bring home that trophy, but if you don't, whoo, I don't love you anymore, right? And we do that with ourselves, and we have an image of God that does that to us also. And that's it. We neglect all self-compassion and self-love. And let me tell you, it's easy to harm yourself with that frame. It's very easy to harm yourself.
Well, I was watching I think it was Joe Rogan. I might be wrong. I was watching an episode yesterday with Howie Mandel, and somebody asked Howie. They asked him, "Well, what is your legacy, and how do you want to be remembered?" He said, "Nobody gets remembered." He says, "Even my grandkids, if you ask them who John Lennon is, they don't know who John Lennon is." So no matter how much we're pushing out, nobody is going to remember us in 100 and 120 years. So we need to start worrying about where we are going to be eternally instead of just worrying about where we're living physically right now.
I agree. I agree. There's a concept that legacy is the final end of the why,
Yeah.
where why do you want to do that? Well, I want to make more money. Well, why do you want to make more money? And you go on down the line and they come up with like legacy. And I would challenge that notion, and I would challenge it for the same reasons that you did, that it's all tied to our need for someone to know our name and the need for greatness, and that's all attached to the ego. And so I would say that that's not a big enough why. That's enough why for vanity, you know that so the world can know my name, and so I can leave a lasting legacy of power and money and all of that stuff. And it's just not good enough. We need to attach to a greater significance. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Is the greater significance is not a greatness in that sense. Maybe it's greatness in maybe a Christ centered perspective, which anybody can be great because everybody can serve. I think maybe with that mindset, I think that has more eternal value.
And like we talked about on your amazing podcast not too long ago, I in my wallet I actually have my obituary written down.
Yeah,
Um, and I have to live up to that man that says Richard Kaufman, loving father, husband, best-selling author, teacher. I have to live up to that. And so for me, I'm trying to be the best man that I can. But
sure.
let's talk about, because I'm on a lot. I think I'm going to be a guest on 300 podcasts this year. I'm going to host over
Wow.
300 this year. And somebody asked me, "Are you an influencer?" And I said, until I met you and until you got me into your group, I was always like, I'm just a guy who knows a guy. I'm not an influencer. I'm just somebody that cares. And if you want to ask me if I'm an
Sure.
influencer, ask my friends. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say I'm
Yeah.
an influencer because I don't believe it. But until your group and you invited me in your group, and then I started realizing I'm an influencer, but not in the influencer way. I influence my kids. I
Sure.
influence my
Yeah.
wife. I influence my local community. I influence my friends to do better, to be better. So in that way, I'm an influencer, but in the world's view, I'm not, and I'm okay with that. So
Sure.
give us the definition of what an influencer is, and then let's give me a, give tell me what a man of influence is.
Yeah.
Two different
Yeah.
things, two different
That it
spectrums.
is. It is. It is. And I'm with you with the ability to influence others. It starts with um, persuading yourself. And I like to explain what I mean by that because a lot of people might not understand the ability to persuade yourself is to convince yourself of the truth that you want to hold because you know it's going to be the most effective truth. And our heart needs to be convinced of that. I like to point that out. That's often through reading and meditation, receiving new information through podcasts. What we're actually doing is reprogramming our mindset and belief system to be more in line with the truth that is going to bring us the results. So, the ability to influence your own heart. And I think when you talked about awareness and recognition, awareness that a lot of things have been planted there, and you didn't plant all of them, but they're sprouting, and the fruit tastes nasty. And so, taking responsibility for that and say, I'm going to influence my own heart to believe the things that I think are going to produce me loving other people, me being good to myself and self compassion, me showing up as the best version of myself. I want to believe those things because those are going to give me the results I'm looking for. So, yeah, when I think of man of influence, the ability to influence and persuade your own heart well, and then gosh, you hit the nail on the head. How can that not influence those around me when I show up and I bring God into every area of my life, whether it's my family, my business, my workout regimen, whatever it is that I take my spiritual life and I take it to all the other areas of my life. Um, Influence is a byproduct of that, and you can't help but be a light when you deal with your darkness. When you brought your stuff to the light, yeah, it's easy. It's easy to be a light. So I say lead from that place of power.
Okay, but in order to lead from a place of power, I believe you have to have presence.
Sure.
You have to be present. And
Present.
I
Yeah.
love the book Atomic Habits, that you have to stack your wins, you have to celebrate your wins.
Sure.
But I believe that in order for me to win the day, I have to win the hour. And in order for me to win the hour, I have to win the minute.
Hmm.
So if I'm present and I'm talking to Tim Holloway right now, I'm not worried about later. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm just
Sure.
worrying being present. You
Present.
can be
Yeah.
way more successful if you're present and you try to be present in each and every situation. That maybe include
Yeah.
if your wife is talking to you, put down the phone, look in her eyes, make sure that she knows that she's being heard. If your daughter, like my daughter, was upset about something yesterday, I just wrapped my arms around her, kissed her on the forehead, and I just held her for 10 seconds. But at least my daddy's present. So talk about
Sure.
how
Yeah.
important presence. It's more important than giving presents.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, man. I love this topic. I think this probably changed my life the most, and that is getting in nature and spending time outside. This is scientifically proven, whether it's green grass or blue skies, that this changes our those two colors alone change our mood and our perspective and our mindset. the sunset, all of these different things that have to do with nature and being outdoors and being present in the moment. They all create a piece of serenity that yeah, it just makes you more connected, more aware. People often look at Jesus because I come from a faith-based perspective, and I look at that and I go, well, where did he defeat his demons? They're out in the weird wilderness. Where did he shine his glory? Well, it wasn't on top of a mountain. Where did he walk on water? Well, I mean, it was on the. So we have all of this manifestation of God in nature, and we have somehow think that it's new agey or woo woo or whatever. We have this mindset that nature is bad, and that goes to once again to mindset, worldview, and framing. And we got to drop some of that stuff because there's some of the most present moments. Like when my kids come over, they'll walk with us around our 5-acre property and join us inside of that present moment where it's a no phone zone and everybody's talking and sharing their hearts. If my wife and I are alone, we'll hold hands as the sun goes down, and it's creating these powerful moments. And I have the privilege of living and working with my wife in. We go through the same workout habits in multiple different times. I had the opportunity to maybe get a trainer and go do some other regimen, and then leave my wife behind and to no longer do it together. It all depends on what you value. Do you value going with somebody and going on the journey together, or do you value the results more than the journey? Because I can easily just leave my wife behind and go do something else that's more strenuous, right? So it's all about the journey. It's all about connecting this to people, and I'd rather go through the journey with people than to run ahead and do my own thing. Like, not going to do it.
Well, you just said something that really hit me. It was something for some reason I'm thinking about this in bed last night. That if you want to know a man's priorities, look at his wallet and look at his calendar.
Sure.
That'll tell you where your priorities actually are. If you say, "Well, I'm a family," my priorities are my family and my kids, but you're spending time at the bar, you're spending time at whatever, and you're giving your children what's left, not what's right, then you're due
Yeah.
to a downfall. So how important it is to sync up your
Sure.
book and your calendar to the life that you want to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Going out to outings together. We're fortunate. Our most of our kids are out. We have one child who's 17. She's already in college and has a car. She's practically out of the house, and everybody comes and visits us once a week, and we have that family Saturday, and I wouldn't trade that for the world, man. So when we talk about legacy, it's like, what do I see? I see the family as a central hub where all of the grandkids and everybody loves coming, and they can go into the trees that are out here, and they can explore the property, and just being that central hub of anchor and support for the family. Um, yeah, that would be the end of my why. And to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. There you go.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about, because a lot of people think, well, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to have an unhappy marriage. And I got into this whole mindset thing, and I started reading Think and Grow Rich, and then I'm like,
Good one,
well,
yeah.
who did he learn from? And he learned from the Carnegie brothers.
Hmm.
And the mind hasn't changed in the last 100, 200 years. That they said your obsessions become your possessions.
Hmm.
So whatever you constantly think about, using your RAS, obviously,
Hmm.
whatever you think about, you're going to find.
Sure.
So if you're always looking for depression, anxiety, being broke, you're going to find that, because, like my
Sure.
coach Joe Nicasio said, the universe is going to give you exactly what you ask for, not a penny more and a penny less. So, how important is it to change your mind using stuff like NLP and
Yeah.
the articulator activating system? How important is to change your mind to start looking for success, happiness, beautiful marriage, beautiful children?
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I think um you're 100% on point with that. If we look at our mind as much like Chat GBT or Google or something, and we tell it to find some certain information, that it's going to go ahead and do that. In our That's just the way we operate. So if we ask it to pull up all the reasons why we're unworthy, your brain will do that for you. uh, and if that becomes your focal point and what you feed on, then that's what's going to manifest outside. This is the foundational spiritual principle that you can find in almost any modality, and that is as within, so without, or as in heaven, so below. And so what that's attaching to is that our outside world mirrors our inside, and this is why you go into a drug house and there's crap everywhere. Like it's just everywhere because it's a manifestation of their inside world, and they've projected on their outside environment. So yeah, what goes on the inside happens on the outside. I believe here's a practice that I do that helps with that when I talk to the people about programming your own heart or persuading your own heart. You know, there is a time where you're very susceptible to the subconscious and to the heart and to the mind to be able to write things on there, the things that you want to write on there. That is when you first wake up or as you're going into sleep. You're in a highly suggestive state. During that time, I have certain things that I program into myself, and they're attached to the power of Christ in me, the ability to create wealth, and all of these other different things that I want to persuade my heart of. So if somebody could take anything from this conversation, you really need to be proactive on the programming that you're creating, and take advantage of the little bit of science that we have in those moments that you can actually tap into core heart beliefs and persuade your heart of that belief that's going to begin to mirror on the outside of you.
Okay, now let's talk about um, because I really love this conversation.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about because a lot of people that are listening to this, they're fellow podcasters, or
Mhm,
they want to start a podcast.
mhm.
And like I said, without you, without Zach, without Ed Milet, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Patrick Bet David, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And John Lee Dumas, obviously. John Lee Dumas actually wrote the whole back cover of my new book. So I love you, John Lee. So let's talk
Nice.
about podcasting because podcasting is the new radio. I can't remember the last time I turned on the radio in my car. I'm always listening to either a podcast, taking courses on LinkedIn, or listening to audiobooks. And audiobooks are normally podcasts. So, talk to us about your podcast, why you started it, and tell us a little bit about why you do what you do.
Absolutely. It's very missional. The Men of Influence podcast is both connected to healing the heart, dealing with some of the issues, becoming the the man that you want to be, sort of thing. And then it's also the other side of that coin is, yeah, once you get healed in all modalities, they just want to share it, man. I want to help the addict who's on the rung below me, whether it's Christianity. I want to help others experience the life of that. It's all attached to that. So after you get free and you start experiencing this life, you want to get vocal about it and you want to share your voice and your influence. So it's all tied into the same mission. The the thing about this is the benefit that I want to point out is you can connect with people that you can never ever connect with otherwise. Like I've
Yeah.
been in rooms with people, and I'm sure you have. John Lee Dumas did the back of your book. Like, come on now, like that's got to be through podcasting. So I met
Yeah.
all of these different people I have the business that I created. I have partnerships that I've created. I have affiliates that I've created, and all of that it all came through podcasting. So the number one thing is like I can I can network with almost anybody. Obviously, there are some people that are out of my reach, but maybe they won't be for long. But I can go to the next level of kind of network and I can begin to associate myself with those and begin to build relationships with these people. And now all of a sudden I find myself on another rung. And then I can go to the next rung. It's all about to me, it's all about networking. That's why some weeks I do 10 shows a week, um, because it's all about, the next person that I can connect with, another person that I can root for to win. And hopefully they see what I'm doing so they can root for me to win. And gosh, you get enough people around you rooting for you to win. Guess what? You're going to win.
Like next year, I'll be speaking at a Richard Branson event.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason I'm going to be able to speak on that stage is because 4 out of the 5 speakers that are on there have been on my show already.
See?
So, like for me, if I didn't meet you, if I didn't meet Zach, they wouldn't have introduced me to Sharon Lecter, who introduced me to Greg Reed, who
Mhm.
introduced me to Kelly Gardinas, and then who introduced me for the drummer for Def Leppard. So if it wasn't for
See?
that initial
Mhm.
meeting, then I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing. Like if I have a question about cooking, and I've done this before, I reached out to my friend, he's an Iron Chef, Simon Majumdar, and he's like, I asked him a question about onions, and he got back to me. If I have a question, if I want to build a $1 billion business, I could reach out to David Meltzer. I'll be like, hey, bro, I got a question for
Mhm.
you. But it's because the meeting with you and Zach made these things. And the
Sure.
thing is, this pod for me, this is my 1300th and 50th episode. I'm friends with
Beast.
every single person I've ever had on my show.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm building relationships, and I think it's because I'm not transactional, I'm relational.
Yep.
So talk
Yep.
about that. Talk about building relationships, especially in the podcast world.
Yeah. All the things you mentioned is why someone should start, man. And I have the same thing. Like Dr. Drew was one of my favorites. God, I had to meet him, spend one-on-one time with him. Tom Bilyeu, like all these different people that I got put in the same room on stages. I got 2 stages next year. I've been on stage. It was all connected to networking and podcasting. So, gosh, people would be surprised to know this, but I'm very introverted. If you put me in a crowd, I'll just go in the corner and I'll just watch my back and make sure everything's cool and safe. It's probably from trauma or whatever. Just don't do very good inside of crowds and stuff. So you know, for me alone, being able to have this kind of impact and be on people's podcasts and for them to be on mine and to create this kind of influence, in the comfort of my own home, it's priceless to me. The relationships that I've built, like it's a brotherhood. It really is. And these people, most of people would be surprised. Most of my business comes from people referring me. And that's just the way it works for me. And so, building relationships and connections is able to support my business. And so, yeah, I love it. I love meeting new people, and it's a great experience, man.
Yeah. And one of the questions I get asked a lot because I do coach people, I have a very niche coaching that I do, teaching people how to become a top level podcaster.
Mhm.
One of the big things I get asked, well, how did you get so and so? How did you get David Meltzer? How did you get Steve Sims to come on your show 3 times? And I said, well, it's all what Tim and the underdog empowerment taught me is when you reach out to a potential guest, add value before you ask.
Mhm.
And for me, I kind of took it a step further. What I did is if I find somebody that I want, and they're high level, I mean high level, if I want them to come on my show, I'm going to buy their book. I'm going to read it and put it into my life. I'm going to write an article about it. I'm going to tag them in it where they people can buy it, and then I'm going to use Dennis Yu's principle. I'm going to promote it for 30 days for $1 a day on social media, so they start seeing my name everywhere. But they're making money, so I provided value without asking for something,
That's
and then I'll
good.
reach
That's
out
good.
to them. Then I'll reach out and be like, "Hey, Mr. Meltzer, I would love to have you come on your show. I know you have a new book coming out, and I think my audience would love to hear about it." And I have
Yeah,
a 99% yes rate. And the
that's
other
so
1%
good.
is not now. So for
Yeah,
like 30, because I have Audible already, so I think it's $15 a month. So for $45, I have some of the most high level guests coming on because I provided value for them before I asked them to come on my
yeah.
show.
That's so good. What a great strategy.
So, what are
People sh
some of your ways that you've gotten some of these amazing people like Tom Bilyeu to
yeah.
come on your show?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I what an amazing strategy. I absolutely love that. Um, what I would tell people is start liking their stuff on social media. Okay. And then you'll start getting ads from all of these different people, right, that are connected to them or similar to them, and start going through the ads and be like, oh, I've never even thought of that person. Oh, I never even thought of that person, and start going through those because here's the thing. If Facebook targeted you as a good person for that whole circle, that means that that person has all kinds of people just like you. And so first is kind of picking your top, which ones you want. And gosh, I would make a list 25. Some people make 30. I put those things in my favorites on Facebook. I'd make sure every single content that comes through from those people gets a authentic reaction. That is a heart and a comment that goes along that way, and then invest in that 25 and go. It's my mission every single day to invest in my 25 favorites, knowing that you're going to build a positive relationship with those people. And yeah, I've gotten quite a few people on my show that way. And yeah, I recommend doing that. Cold email, surprisingly, still works. You can find a lot of people's emails easily through like Hunter.io or some of these other apps that Pod Seeker. Everybody's podcast is public knowledge, and so is their email. And so you could find anybody's email according to their podcast. If you do cold email, make sure it's like one little sentence, very brief, because these people don't want a one sheet. They don't want long stuff. And you'll be surprised how many people will respond to a very authentic, short message that doesn't require much of their time. If it's long, they'll just pass it up. But if you couple your strategy along with it, it's like, okay, I got these 25 people. I'm going to like all their stuff on Facebook, and then I'm going to invest some sort of value in each one, and then I'm going to send the email, or then I'm going to send the DM. What amazing strategy. Like, so
Well,
would take that and run with it.
yeah, but also I think for somebody to come on when I first started out and I didn't have any audience, I had to reach their emotions. I had to make them want to. Like a lot of people don't realize that Sharon Lecter lost her son, a Marine, to 22. A
Oh,
lot of
wow.
people don't know that Robert Kiyosaki was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. A lot of people don't realize that John Lee Dumas was a tank commander, a tank platoon commander that lost a tank crew in Iraq, and he was depression and suicidal. A lot of people don't realize that Patrick Bet David was a veteran. So a lot of people don't realize that Ed Milet's father was a very bad alcoholic when he was a child. So a lot
Mhm.
of times when I reach out to these people, I tug at their heartstrings because I want to create. There's a bond already.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then I'm not just saying, "Hey, come on my show," because I want to get in front of your audience. I'm like, no, I want to create like John Lee. How did it feel to
Yeah.
be, you're known as the Entrepreneur on Fire podcaster, but tell people about what it was like to be a suicidal veteran.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
That's
what I
so
mean?
good. Yeah. Yeah, that's
And then,
good, man.
then also like, I had JLD on. He's been on my show. He wrote the book. So when I reach out, because I seen him with pictures, I looked at all his pictures, and I looked out to Dean Graziosi, and I'm like, I had John Lee on the show. I would love to have you
Have
come
you
on
on the show? Yeah, that's a good one.
because I love your book because I actually use the 7 whys in my life, and I would love to have you come on and talk about it.
Yeah.
How's he going to say no?
You hit a main truth is once you break the barrier to the next level is open. And you touched on it. If I can get one of these from this top 25, I'm going to have a greater access on this level. So all it takes is one, man.
All right, but then
That's
another
good.
question I get asked, and this is like I don't have the right computer, I don't have the right phone, I don't have the right microphone, and I'm like, listen, if you ever seen Gary Vaynerchuk's most popular video ever, it was shot on a camcorder at a yard sale like 10 years ago. It's got like 30 million views with a flip cam. So,
Yeah.
you really don't need the best of equipment. You just need to have some equipment and then start, because,
Yeah.
perfect inaction is better than perfect inaction.
It's true. It's true. You might look at me and like, oh, your setup looks nice. It's nice. It's not expensive. The picture was Amazon created in 3 pictures and did that. The blue light is just the thing, and I put a light in. This mic is $150. The camera is a 1080 HD thing for $100. Like what you're looking at is not very expensive. Just a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. Um, and you look and you sound great. It's all it takes. Like literally, maybe $400 of investment, and you could start just by grab the mic first, $150.
Yeah, and
And
I tell everybody if you have from iPhone 11 on, your phone has an amazing camera,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
with the 16s now. The cameras are even better than some of the cameras that are out there. And my first 1,000 episodes was done on a phone. I didn't even have a laptop until Christmas last year. So if I can do it,
yeah, yeah,
anybody can do it. But let me
sure,
ask you
sure.
another question because when John Lee Dumas, I actually paid John Lee Dumas to mentor me and teach me. I invested. I didn't pay. I invested. And the first 2 weeks, we worked on finding my perfect listener, a perfect avatar. And he said you got to go an inch wide but a mile deep to find out who your perfect listener is. Because, like Jim Rohn said, if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody. So, how
Sure.
important is it to find your perfect listener?
It really is. It all starts right there. The clarification of the message. You can ask yourself a couple of questions. What is this podcast about? Who is it for? Where is it taking them? What are they going to accomplish from that? So getting those kind of core questions down is going to help you a lot. And let me tell you, I started this probably like 7 years ago was my first podcast. It's not out there anymore, but I think it was called Heroes Quest or something. And I spent a lot of time talking to the wrong person, and I didn't mean to. It's just nobody ever told me like who I was supposed to be talking to. It was weird because it was like, I want to lead men, I want to do this and that and the other thing, and I got all these women reaching out to me, and I'm like, what did I do? And I was just very, very connected to women's problems and what women were going through and some of this stuff. And so all my coaching programs were majority of women, and not that that's wrong. I'm just saying that I wanted to talk to men. And so you have to start with that in mind, that the results and the fruit that you're going to get is based upon the very singular message that you have for that person. And you need to really discover what that is and sit down with it for a little bit. Who exactly am I trying to reach? And some of that is you're trying to reach you 5 years ago. Maybe it's you want to reach you
Yeah.
10 years ago. Like,
Yep.
there's some of that involved. So, okay, well, who is me 5 years ago? Or who is me when I was like getting a wake up call? Like, who was that person? And really start addressing the pain and the solutions that you have for that one person. If you start there, let me tell you, you're going to save yourselves years of trouble, and you're going to avoid the temptation to give up because you're going to be talking to that person, and you're going to start getting responses from that person, getting DMs from men who are struggling because they're in the grind. I get those all the time because I'm talking to the right person now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so important.
It's something that I love that my coach Joe Nicasio taught me, that I was just thinking, okay, well, I have a podcast. Well, my podcast, I think we're over about almost 3 million downloads now. Um,
Ah, it's
and we're like
good.
at the top and all that stuff, but I wasn't making money, and that's why I wrote my book. It talks about, if your podcast isn't powerful, um, if it's not profitable, and if it's not purposeful, you're going to be out. You're going to do something called pod fade.
Yes.
Less than 13 episodes. You're going to be done because this is a job. It work. But so talk to us about how important that not only is having a podcast important for podcasting, but using as a distribution channel. Like for me,
Yes.
I sell T-shirts, hats, coffee, books, speaking events. So I'm just using it as a distribution platform for everything else business wise that I'm doing. So how
Yeah.
important it is to start thinking of it as a corporation, not just I'm talking into a mic.
Yeah. So I have the same mindset, and this is why I feel very successful with my podcast. It's the ground floor. It's the foundation of everything that I'm doing. And so the referral network that I have is all because of the podcast. So you think of each person that you interview as another person that wants you to win. So there's a lot of fulfillment in that. I judge myself based upon, creating those kind of partnerships and win-wins. And then I also begin to judge my podcast on, am I bringing it to the people? It's quite different. I started out 7 years ago, and I had the podcast, and I expected everybody to come find me, and so over this period of time, I figured out a different strategy, and let's bring the podcast to the people, stream it live on Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other places. Like, don't like do like churches do, expect that people are just going to find your church, right? Bring the church to the people. And so that I've taken on that method. And so uh people seeing my face through video, through shorts, through the podcast, through everything, it creates the know, like, and trust factor to create profitability. And so that's all what I judge it by. I actually don't do it based upon downloads and numbers, because I don't want to go to LinkedIn and to Facebook and to YouTube and gather all of this data up and then go to my main site. Is because as long as I'm networking, creating referral partnerships, and it's profitable, um, then that's kind of my motif of what I believe. And it's sad. is I think this has to do with an intention, and I think you could probably speak on this too. That if you go into podcasting and say, "Well, it's not my intention to build a network. It's not my intention to make money. I'm just there to educate," and that's fine if that's what you are to do. But if you have an educational podcast and it's not profitable, it's not building your network, and you're frustrated about it, it's because you haven't set the intention. If you set the intention of what this exists for, and then have that be your focal point, all of a sudden you'll start seeing it do what you want it to do. And so that's how we're able to create. It's not about the money in the sense of like my sole focus is to make money. That is like far removed from the mindset. To be profitable and to create wealth so the mission can continue, so the voice can spread, so more men can get healed. You see, it's far bigger than that. So setting the intention starts right there.
I love it. So this is a teaching podcast. What would be if somebody wanted to start their podcast on October 9th, 2024? What would be your top three pieces of advice?
Sure. The first one was to get really, really solidify the marketing message. So the who, what, and the where. If you can solidify where you're taking them. So let's say if your podcast is financial planning, I just came up with that one. That you're taking them from this location to where they're currently located. So you have to know where they're at, and you have to know all the pain that is associated with the problem that you're going to solve. And so you center your podcast around the issue or the problem that you're going to solve, speak to that problem, and then have a journey that you're taking these people on, because if they listen, they know that you are taking them somewhere. If you're going to lead somebody, you got to have a vision, and you got to have a method, a mode of transportation to get them from one point to the other, right? From not having a podcast to having a podcast, from terrible financial planning to so solid to where you're going to take them. Second one, I already talked about it. Bring the podcast to the people. Know, like, and trust factor, and face, be seen all of this time on social media, and create a solid offer that's connected to your podcast. That's the key thing. Um, People, they want to go the other route of maybe monetization or ads or stuff, and you can get to that point. That's not where I would start. I would start at, let's create an offer that's connected to my podcast that solves a tangible problem. A tangible problem is health, uh, you know, anything that people are willing to pay for. If your marriage is going down the tubes, you're willing to pay to fix it. If you're in your mindset that is creating a lot of parenting problems, you're willing to fix it. So it's got to be something that that it's a big enough problem that people will open their pocketbook to solve that problem. That's key.
All right, and but now something that a big hack that you guys taught me, you
Mhm.
and Zach in the underdog empowerment.
Sure.
You taught me that when I have somebody signed up through Calendly or whatever, however you schedule them, that you have them act, you have the potential guests promise you that they're going to share their episode on all their platforms, including being on your email list. And for that has been the biggest game
There you
changer
go.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
me, because once I go back and say, "Hey Tim, you remember you promised me that you'd share your episode? Well, here are all your links. Just click and paste. Thank you so much. I love you, brother."
Yeah.
99% of my guests will share their episodes out because they already promised. So
Yeah.
talk about that one thing that could be a total game changer for all the podcasters out there.
Yeah, yeah. So, like you said, put that inside of your the questions on your Calendarly link. The way I do it is people answer the question, so I know which way to kind of take the interview, and you can include it inside of there. I forget what the law they call it, but it's natural for us to begin to live
It's
up to
called
what we said. Go ahead.
the law of reciprocity.
Law of reciprocity, right? So we automatically want to make sure that we do what we said we were going to do. And so if you before the podcast, after the podcast, reiterate the same thing. You got a person agreeing twice to it, and when it comes time to do it, they're reminded that they committed. And so yeah, great tactic, especially with the people that got big influence. Once you begin to get the next level people on, man, I'm sure it was a game changer for you. That's pretty epic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
learned it from you guys. So every time anybody asks me, I'm like, this is who I learned it from. So I didn't come up with it. I learned it from you guys. So that's normally my last question, but for you, because it's you, I got one more question.
Okay.
You know, today Florida's supposed to get hit with some major hurricanes. Um, a lot of COVID is coming back in a lot of different places. And when I had Simon Majumdar on, he said over 100,000 restaurants closed since COVID. So we have a lot of people that are driving Uber, DoorDash, all this stuff. So if I ask somebody to do something in 7 days, they're never going to do it. But if I ask somebody to do something in 24 hours, they're more likely to do it. So, Tim, if there's somebody out there struggling with their faith, what can they do in the next 24 hours to get in alignment and find the peace in their life that they're looking for?
Yeah. I would like to go back to the thing about getting outside and going in nature. And I call it a walk and talk with the divine. You call it whatever you want. You need a place of serenity. You need a place to where you can get away, where you could be alone, and begin to have that conversation, man. And we often think that God is going to meet us in a box. And what I mean by box is kind of like an institutional a form that we have to go to this temple or go to this location and stuff. And from my experience, God is found in the solitude of nature. So maybe it's going fishing, maybe it's doing something, but get alone and begin to have that conversation of with Him. And here's the way I do it. The way I recommend it is I'm not going to compartmentalize anymore, and I'm not going to hide anything from you. And my heart is open and bare before you, and you can shine your light and heal anything that you want, and you can have your way. And if there's anything that you want to pull up for me right now and begin to touch that area of my life, and bring the healing process and the journey, I'm willing to go on that journey with you. I'll tell you, man, you do something like that, whoo, you're gonna start healing really quick.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that the right before Jesus was killed for our sins, he walked through the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah.
Where he had the peace. That's where he was talking to his father. If it's your will, be done. So I think it has something to do, like you said, about putting your feet in the
You know
sand
what's
or
crazy about that, Richard, is it actually says in there that the Judas knew where to find him because they often retreated there. They were often there. It's like, oh man, when was the last time we were on a mountaintop? When was the last time we were in the wilderness? When was the last time we were in the garden? Like all these different things. It's like, whoo, it's been a long time since I done the things that Jesus did, and we need to get back to it, man.
amen. And so guys, okay, so Tim, where do we find your podcast? How can we get in your ecosystem?
Yeah, the most important thing for me is, man, go to Facebook and go to Men of Influence. What you're going to find there is not a lot of macho men that are saying, man up, suck it up, buttercup. You're going to find real authentic people there who are willing to deal with stuff and be open and vulnerable and stuff like that. So Men of Influence on Facebook. I love to connect with you there. It's a very engaging group. There's not any spam or anything like that. It's all just real stuff. So that's really the only thing I got. You can go to the Men of Influence podcast also, but I would really like to connect with you inside of the Men of Influence group.
And I'm truly humbled and grateful just to be able to be a member of this amazing group. Because I've met so many amazing men that are they're on the same journey. I mean, I'm 50. I'll be 56 years old, but I'm still on the journey. I'm still trying to learn and get better. And there's no such thing as too old to become a better father, better husband, businessman. Just to
Yeah,
10x. It's never too late to 10x.
it's never too late, man.
All right, guys, and I promise you that, guys, if you pick up my new book, it's actually written. The whole back cover is written by John Lee Dumas. The ebook version is only $1.99. The hardcover is $9.99. And if you're a business owner and you buy either one of those books, I will give you something valued at over $997. So for $10, you're going to get over $1,000 in bonuses, and the prices are going up in a little while. But for you guys, the books is available. It's on Amazon. You got to go to Amazon, search my name, and you can pick up the book. But something I want to leave you with, guys. I leave you with this every week. I believe, like Joel Osteen says, that you can either be a victim or you can be a victor.
Yes, sir.
And guys, if you listen to this podcast, you are no longer a victim of your past. You're a victor of your present and your future. So thank you for always showing up. And I love you guys. Tim, my brother, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for your mentorship and your friendship. By the way, you should be getting something in the mail the next couple of days. Just want to let you know that.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Love you guys. Remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have a great day and be good to each other.